Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Paul Sullivan. He is the Region CEO for the American Red Cross. We'll meet him when we come back, so stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Paul Sullivan, Region CEO for the American Red Cross. It's Paul's first time on the show, so we welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me, Sean. I appreciate it.
Everybody has heard of the American Red Cross, but if there was some way to sort of sum it up and give sort of the mission statement of the American Red Cross, what is it as an organization and what do you stand for?
Sure. Well, the Red Cross works to save lives. One of our various slogans, if you will, is "Together we can save a life." And to me, that's what makes Red Cross so special. Is we're the facilitator between people in the community and the people that need help. Right? We're that intermediary, really kind of creating the connection, making it happen.
You always hear about the Red Cross when a tragedy occurs. You always hear about it, and that's a good thing. But obviously it exists as an organization, as a vital organization every day, even when there isn't some sort of tragedy happening in the world.
Yeah, that's exactly right, right? So we always feel like we need to be prepared for tomorrow, right? That's one of the mantras of the Red Cross, is we're trying to get people to be prepared, to be thoughtful, to be ready. And you see it through all the Red Cross lines of service. The blood we collect today will be available for a patient tomorrow, right? That's why we're out there today. It's not like we can have someone be hurt or injured and need blood and then run out and get it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. It has
no.
to be there tomorrow. Same with disaster preparedness. Our volunteers have to be trained. They have to be ready. They have to know what to do. They have to have supplies, materials. So again, there's a lot of, if you will, kind of forward thinking and planning so we can make sure that we're there when people need us.
Literally a lifesaver, but it's like unfortunate that you have to hear about any kind of tragedy, a hurricane, some kind of a bad storm, or a tragedy like a Sandy Hook situation, for you to hear that the American Red Cross is involved. But it's a good thing too.
Yeah, it's reality, right? And the good news is I think people do know who the American Red Cross is. We've got a great brand. People do know what we stand for. It's always good to get a chance to explain it to people, right? To put a little bit finer point on it. But I do think people understand the important work we do, because I see it every day, right? And maybe the media doesn't cover it every day, but whether it's, again, a donor coming in to give blood, a hospital having Red Cross available, blood available for a patient, whether it's people responding to, a big disaster, like you said, gets all the attention, but to local disasters, all across America, there are local Red Crosses sending out support to family fires, right? Yeah. That happens a couple times a night in this area. And it's usually, at best, a quick media mention on the news, but it's a compelling thing, right? If you've just lost your home, you want someone there helping you out. And again, it is the Red Cross, but it's volunteers, who have joined the Red Cross. And that, to me, I think is what's so great about the Red Cross, and is again, us is them. Them is us, right?
Yeah.
The Red Cross isn't some
in an ivory tower
it's
kind
not,
of thing.
I mean, sure, there are people who I work every day for the Red Cross. But most importantly, we have volunteers who do this because they want to help their community. And again, we provide a vehicle, right? And so, again, that's what I find so compelling about the Red Cross, is it's a group of volunteers, a group of people who have decided that they're going to work together to try to respond to people in their time of need. And it's great stuff.
I think most people know the American Red Cross as an organization that collects blood donations. So talk about that aspect of it a little bit.
Right. So that's what I do every day. And again, I think it's a very important, compelling line of work. So essentially, we're responsible for for providing hospitals around the area with the blood they need for patients. So what that means is we have a group of volunteers and staff who are out there every day recruiting donors. We work with companies, places of worships, schools, Lions clubs, Rotary, you name it.
It's amazing how many organizations get involved with
exactly.
this. Exactly.
For people who sponsor blood drives, the volunteer coordinators at the local level. We have a highly trained crackerjack group of people who go out every day, who are well trained to do the different roles they do, whether it's driving our vehicles, whether it's doing the phlebotomy, doing the health history, whether it's assisting hospitals, delivering the blood. We have a trained cadre of people, and then we again take that blood that's voluntarily donated, expertly managed and processed, and then eventually deliver it to hospitals.
And I think the one good aspect, obviously you want to be able to advertise when there are blood drives, but I think the media has a habit of hyping disasters and tragedies, but they also do a good job of getting the word out when a blood drive is going to happen. Not that it's always an emergency situation, but you always hear about blood drives, and I think they do a good job of getting the word out, because the more the better.
Yeah, right? Well, and we rely on it, right? Because we need blood every day of the year. I mean, literally, we are expected to be able to provide our area hospitals with blood when they call. And we do that, right? We are a true 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 52-week-a-year operation. And we take great pride in making sure we're there when the hospitals call. The only way that happens is donors coming in the door to help us, right? And so again, just as you said, sometimes that's driven by some big event, right? Something that has called our local community or our nation to action, right? And that's great. That makes a big difference. We also need, in fact, rely on, and ultimately is almost more important for those regular donors who understand the importance and come out on a regular basis. Quite frankly, Sean, that's why I'm so appreciative of getting on your show, is because we want people to understand that it's not just when they see us in the headlines, it's a regular thing, right? The most valuable donor to us is the person who gets it, who knows it's important, comes in twice, 3 times, 4 times. Some people come in 6 times a year to donate whole blood. We've got folks who donate pheresis, platelet pheresis, and they do it 20 times a year,
wow,
right?
That's amazing.
So there are people out there who get it. The only challenge we face is there aren't enough of them.
Do you find that people like that are coming in, you can never use the word excessively because you can never have enough, but do you find that those are the people that may have some kind of personal, it affects their lives in some way, whether it's a relative or a friend, some way they understand it more, and they understand the, not necessarily urgency, but the need for it.
Right. So yeah, I think so, right? So there's different ways, as I said, people get it, right? There are different ways people come to the realization of how important this is, right? Often it's a family member needs blood, right? That is a common and profound story, right? If you have an elderly parent and you see blood sustaining them and giving them a graceful exit, then that's a very powerful thing,
sure
right?
Is.
If you have a child suffering from leukemia, good gracious, there's nothing more compelling, right? If, pick it, I could go on a laundry list, right? But, car accidents, cancer treatments, right? And we throw this stat out regularly, but it's, 1 out of every 2 people will need blood in their lifetime, right? So whether we always know it or not, pretty much everyone we know, has either been directly affected or indirectly affected, meaning it is a real part of healthcare. So there are different ways to come to that realization, and once they do, it's our job, and something we focus very much on, is to give them, again, a vehicle for that, right? So we take it very seriously, kind of what happens at the drive, that they get good customer service, that we steward and safeguard that product from their arm to the hospital, so that their commitment, if you will, or their interest in helping can be fulfilled.
And we were talking about this off the air. It was interesting what you told me for the big, event situations, tragedies, or that occur, depending on what type it is, depending on what it is, prompts people to want to get involved more or donate if they feel like the need is there. Like a blizzard may get or a hurricane may get a completely different response than maybe sort of the tragedy at Sandy Hook or something like that, right? Right.
So it gets back to motivation, right? Which is something that that's a little hard to always put your finger on, right? And I think it's also how people perceive the relevance, which is a fair thing, right? So, our approach, again, and it's why I really try to focus people on becoming a regular blood donor is there's always a need, right? We want people to come in when they see us in the news, but we want them to come in regularly, right? So yeah, we do see, after Hurricane Sandy, I think people saw the Red Cross in the news a lot, and our blood drives were busy. And that was great, because quite frankly, we did have areas of the Northeast that struggled to collect blood for a little while, and so we were actually able to help them. In this area, we normally import blood from other parts of the country, but at that time, we had actually enough people coming into our blood drives, we were able to help out other people in need.
It's unfortunate that it took at a big event like a hurricane to have people come in.
Sure. But yeah, so there are different things that motivate. We work hard to try to tap into that, right? So we work hard to make sure they understand how important it is for patients. We try to make it fun, whether it's partnering with a Dunkin' Donuts or another entity to give out a coupon or free coffee, or we have raffles regularly for performances. Sure, those are a drop in the bucket compared to helping a patient, but they're fun. And like I said, we always try. Whether we do a good enough job, I don't know, and we try to do a really good job, but you can never say thank you enough. So the other thing we just try to do is make sure people know how appreciative we are, or really more importantly, how appreciative people on the other side are, right? So I regularly tell people, I have the best job around. I get to work with, right? If you want to go meet a good group of people, go to a blood drive. Salt of the earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Good people. And then if you want to be thanked for doing good, talk to a patient, right? Again, talk to all those people.
It's a double win for you.
Yeah, it's a double win. Oh, and I don't say it with great pride. I just say it more so people know, hey, this matters, right? It matters. And if you are a blood donor, you're doing a good thing, and you're doing it with a lot of other good people.
So, for those, blood donors are important, they're great. Now, for the people who are hesitant or concerned or afraid or just misunderstand the process, how can we get people, what can you say to people to sort of alleviate their misgivings or any misconceptions about donating blood?
Well, I would tell them to come on down.
Yeah.
Come into a blood drive.
But they want to avoid the needle.
No, I understand. I just was saying that a little bit of a joke because once you come in, you realize it's not so intimidating, right? And I get it. I was obviously a first-time donor once too. I really take pride in donating now, but maybe we can take a minute and just talk about the different steps, right? Sure. So when you come into a blood drive, this is what you should expect. You'll be greeted by a volunteer, right? And we ask people to call 1-800-RED-CROSS or go to www.redcrossblood.org. Make an appointment, right? We want you to have an appointment. The reason we want you to have an appointment is we want to give you the best service we can, right? We want to honor the time that you're giving us. And the best way we can do that is if we know you're coming, right? So come in, identify yourself to the person who's at the front. That's usually a volunteer, someone who's giving their time to try to help us out. And we appreciate it greatly. And then they'll take your information. They'll share with you some basic information. And then you'll do what we call our health history, really, which is making sure through a series of admittedly personal questions that
necessary, though, right?
Necessary, that it's safe for you to give blood and it's safe for the person on the other side to receive your blood. We take your vitals, right? So it's almost a mini physical, which is a good thing for you as a donor coming in. But again, it's important to us that you're going to come out feeling great. And it's obviously very important that someone who's already sick, who needs the blood, is going to get a safe product, right? So that takes about 10-15 minutes.
Physical's no big deal, by the way, right? It's pretty quick and painless.
Right. So then you get to the part that most people get nervous about, right, which is the phlebotomy, and I would say that's no big deal too, right? And this is why. First of all, we have excellent staff, right, who do phlebotomies, who do the needle stick, if you will, every day. And
you really try to avoid using the word needle, didn't you?
Well, but, however you want to. They do a good job, was my point. And so when you sit back and you put out your arm, we always do it on the inside of your elbow and your inner arm. And the reason we do that is, one, there's good access to your vein, right? But it's also a place where you don't have that many nerves, right? And so is it a pinprick? Sure. Does it hurt? Sure.
For a second.
For a second, exactly, right? Yeah. And the downside versus the impact, no comparison, right? a few minutes of leaning back and relaxing and having a pinprick and then saving a life. Saving a life. Come on.
Right.
It's a no-brainer when you really sit back and think of it. And if you can get over the concern or fear. And then you do the donation. That takes about 15 minutes.
By the way, you don't even have to look at it if you don't want to. You can turn your head.
No, I've given blood many times, and I still look away simply because I prefer to. It's just again, as you say, it makes it easier. Anyway, and then you go over to our canteen, and we ask you to spend 10-15 minutes with us. Drink some water. We want you to be well hydrated, and we want you to have some juice, cookies, and feel great, and then go.
And then after that point of time, 10-15 minutes after you've done giving blood, then you can go. You can drive your car home.
Sure.
But you do want to. Now let's talk about some things that you shouldn't do after. I mean, once you give blood, can you go to the gym, or is it a good idea not to do that? Strenuous things.
We ask people to take it easy the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like everything. It's based on an abundance of caution. Most people feel great. Some people don't. Some people, want a little bit more time, and if they don't feel well, they can stay with us for a few more minutes. But we do ask them to take it easy. Reward yourself, right? Wear proudly the "I gave blood today" sticker. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
if you wear the "I vote" sticker, why not the "I gave blood" sticker?
Well,
right?
no, I was going to say people wear it, and I think they wear it with pride. And they should. But anyway, my point to answer your question is, take it easy. Most likely you're going to feel great, but why push it? You've just done something really superb, and so reward yourself with an easy day.
What happens to your body once you give that blood? Does it immediately start regenerating? How does that work inside you?
Yeah. So again, there are a few different ways people can give. So maybe we should talk about those real quick. You can give whole blood, which is what you typically think of. You go to the blood drive. We fill up the blood bag. We take that back to Farmington, where we process the blood, and we essentially turn that into products ready for hospitals. And we can talk a little bit more about that in a minute. We do red cell apheresis, where you actually go to a blood drive and you give 2 units of red cells. You actually are connected to the drawing machine, and it will separate out real time your red cells, give you back your platelets and plasma plus a little bit of saline. And that we use for people who have critically needed red blood cell types, O neg, B neg, A neg. We want those folks to give more if they can. And then we also do platelet apheresis. And so again, that's where we're getting a targeted procedure. So I say that because depending on what you've donated, your body will respond differently. But the basic truth is always your body starts to regenerate this, right? Red cells. Again, there's a 56-day interval between your donations. That's to make sure that you,
enough time.
Yeah, we don't want people to be anemic by giving blood. Platelets, you can actually give more frequently. You can actually give platelets, essentially every 2 weeks. Your platelets generate very quickly. So again, it depends.
Is it almost a good idea to give blood? Is it like an oil change for your body in a way? Is that a true statement, or
it's a statement.
You've heard that.
I've heard that, and it's a statement that's been looked at, and there's a lot of
science behind it.
And there's a lot of reason to think that it is a very healthy thing. The part that always seems to come up is these surveys that blood donors live longer and so on. Well, that may be, there's correlation and coincidence or causation.
Right.
There's the aspect, right, which is, do blood donors, are they healthier because they give blood, or are they healthy people who give blood, right? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Again, we have people who've been donating blood. I was at a blood drive a few months ago where we had a 92-year-old donor, and there's no upper age limit to donation. And he said he'd been doing this. He actually had said he'd been doing it since World War II. And he always thought it was an important part of, kind of, I think, who he was, but also thought it was a healthy thing to do. I mention it because it helps your health, or it's just simply a fact that if you're 92 and you're still giving blood, then not only have you helped a lot of people along the way by giving blood, but you've obviously been blessed by good health as well.
And you helped yourself too.
Sure.
Why is it a good idea for a person to know their own blood type?
Well, it's again, if you were to find yourself in an acute situation, hospitals will check your blood type almost immediately. And in a trauma situation, they'll almost always give you O negative or O positive blood, red cells at least, right off the bat. But it's important to know, just because obviously why we are always out there trying to get the right types of products at the right time is because your body needs a match, you know, and there are consequences, obviously, if someone gets
just makes life easier for everybody
well,
involved.
Well, sure, it's easier, but yeah, obviously, in the worst case, if you were to get a blood type that didn't match your blood type, you could have a very serious reaction.
I wanted to get back to what you were talking about. Once the hospital gets a hold of the blood, the process there. You wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Well, sure, or you know, maybe a little bit from how it gets to the donor to the patient. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So once you give blood, you know, often people think of it like, oh, okay, I gave blood, must just go over to the hospital. But there's a lot in between that donation and getting it to the hospital. And once people think about it, it makes a lot of sense. And so maybe we can just talk about that for a minute. We take that blood, and there's really a couple important things we do with it. First, we want to maximize the donation, right? We don't have enough blood donors, you know, in the grand scheme of thing, regularly giving. I mentioned to you that we tend to need to import blood from other parts of the country. So we obviously steward that blood, safeguard that blood very carefully. One thing that we can do is we can separate that whole blood donation into its components. So you can take the red cells, the platelets, and the plasma and separate those, and those can go to 3 different patients. So we often talk about, you know, one donation can save 3 lives, and that's true. It literally sustains people's life. So if you take those different products, the red cell product, again, that has a 42-day shelf life, so lasts a little bit longer. We refrigerate that. We're able to keep it safe for a patient. Platelets, which we actually have to keep at room temperature, gently agitating, you know, that will spoil quickly. So it actually has only a 5-day shelf life. So we're constantly resupplying that. And plasma actually has the longest shelf life. We can keep that frozen for up to a year, and it's still safe for a patient. So anyway, so that's what we do. We take those products, we take the red cells, we refrigerate them, we get them ready for a hospital, platelets and plasma. While we're preparing the product, doing that separation, we take samples of that blood that you've also donated, and we test that blood, you know, to make sure it's safe again for the patient, right? So whether it's HIV or hepatitis or, you know, a number of other issues, we want to, again, make sure that we take every possible precaution that we are giving a product that will help the patient and in no way harm them, right? And we recognize it's a challenging proposition to take something from one person out in the world, walking around, living a life, and then transferring it to someone else safely, right? So anyway, so we do that testing. That testing takes about 12 hours or so to confirm that the blood is safe. And once it is, you know, demonstrated to be as safe as we can assert it to be, then we take that and we deliver it to the hospital. And we've got, again, people standing by, you know, literally 24 hours a day, take calls from the hospitals. We obviously pre-stock hospitals on a regular basis, regular deliveries. You can think almost like a dairy, you know, shipping out its milk every morning. Yeah. And then obviously, because of the nature of hospitals and the work we do, we have folks who are ready, you know, kind of at a moment's notice to resupply them or to supplement what they need should they have a particularly severe case. It's
actually a fascinating, when you hear how the travels it makes and what it can do, it's an amazing. I want to flip to the other side. We only have a short amount of time left. Volunteers, do you need them? Are you always looking for them? Any skill sets necessarily more so than others?
Sure, great question. So we always need the blood donors. That's a great way to volunteer, and then we absolutely do need volunteers in different areas for the Red Cross. And
they don't need to have like medical training per se, I would imagine.
They don't, right? So we have volunteers who can do different things with different skill sets, right? So sure, you can come in and support us at a blood drive, and you know, quite frankly, as long as you're courteous, you know, comfortable with the public and willing to help out. Again, call 1-800-RED Cross, go to redcrossblood.org, volunteer. We'd love to have you because it quite frankly makes our jobs easier, and we can do a better job welcoming donors in to give blood. We do need people with special skill sets, and you'll hear that especially at times of extended disaster or challenge, right? So what is a wonderful thing to do, again, if you're willing to volunteer and you have special skills, again, go to www.redcross.org and identify, right? So So during different tragedies, we have different needs. We've needed people who can drive vehicles, CDL drivers, right? Easy to understand. We deployed mental health professionals to areas that have suffered greatly to try to help people through that. And so we need volunteers with those skill sets. Nurses, doctors, physicians, assistants, people with medical backgrounds. Again, redcross.org. Right. Identify yourself, right? And it's almost a laundry list, right? And then we have, and it's the other thing to think about, is we have a lot of courses to train people for skills you just don't walk in with, right? So disaster relief, sheltering operations, how to support a shelter in times of need. Again, we can provide the training, redcross.org.
I wish we had more time because you sound so passionate about it. Paul Sullivan, Region CEO of American Red Cross, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hey, it's great to be here, Sean. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. We will see you next time. Take care.